Voces Que Luchan e Inspiran podcast by Centro Mexicano. My name is Mariana Martinez, and I am the Executive Director at Centro Mexicano and your host. And this month, the month of July, we are celebrating Disability Pride Month. And for that, we have a great guest that works at a great organization doing amazing work. Her name is Mandy, working at Disability Empowerment Center. So I'm going to say, so welcome, Mandy. Welcome. Let me just do this.
Thank you.
I'm gonna read who Mandy is, and she's gonna tell us a little bit about her, a little bit more about herself, as well as the great work that the organization does. And we're gonna dive deeper as to what disabilities is, how they serve our community. So Mandy is an independent living specialist at Disability Empowerment Center, also a certified peer counselor who brings both professional expertise and lived experience with a variety of disabilities to her work. Before coming to Disability Empowerment Center, Mandy worked in a variety of social service settings and also operated a private practice as a licensed therapist. She credits much of her own healing and wellness to the communities that have supported her along the way, and is passionate about supporting others in their own journeys while encouraging self-advocacy, mindfulness, and adaptability. That's beautiful, Mandy. Thank you so much for being here. So tell us maybe a little bit more. I know reading somebody's bio is like, this is everything I've done, but if there's anything else that you want to add that you've done that you think is important, let us know. Otherwise, love to hear. Also, who is Disability Empowerment Center? What do they do?
Okay, Disability Empowerment Center is a center for independent living, and there's several of them across the United States. So our mission is empowering people with disabilities the freedom to live with autonomy and choice. And our vision is people with disabilities are guaranteed equity, inclusion, and choice. So we're all about looking at people as, autonomous beings, being able to make their own decisions, guide their own lives, and make their own choices. So we believe that everyone deserves to be treated with equity. And as I'm mentioning, being included to have the choices they have. And so we help people access resources. And we also help with very different policies that we think are important. Like if there's anything that we want our representatives to know,
right,
we will bring them up. I've gone to like Washington D.C., for example.
Oh, that's great.
To talk to my representative about certain things that were going on at the time. This was several years ago, and just explaining what people with disabilities in my community are going through, and what would my ask be for them to consider, right? We're not allowed to lobby, but we can share stories and say this is important to us and this is how it's going to impact the community.
Right.
Yeah. Trying to think.
No, I think this is equity, in thinking about disabilities is not often, I feel, left, an afterthought in many cases. And to me, I will say it touches me personally. My mom lost her vision gradually, and she's nearly blind. And the adaptation of the needs, I'm in awe all the time that wherever we go, is not adapted to her needs. And there's always you have to make that extra effort, and how people, right? Like you're talking to customer service, like, go to the website. I'm like, I can't go to the website. Right? Like, well, I'm not trained to do that. And it's just crazy how we're not, prepared to, and I'm saying collectively, right? To meet the needs, various needs. And I think that's, the organization that everything that you do is really important. And I'll say something that at Centro Mexicano we actively practice is that the people who work at the organization reflect the communities that we serve. And I know that's the case for Disability Empowerment Center. So tell us a little bit about more how impactful and how important it is that people with disabilities lead the work so that they're the best ones to, right?
Yeah, so the difference between us and other types of social services is that we look at our clients, or actually we call them participants,
Mm-hmm.
we look at our participants as the expert
Mm-hmm.
or experts. And so we like to say, we use the analogy of driving. You're at the driver's seat driving. I'm the one, me, independent living specialist Mandy, is holding the map. So you get to decide what your path is. And, if you're like, whoa, do I need to turn left or right? I'll let you know, because I'm
I'll help
holding
you
the
with
map.
the way with the GPS, but you're still driving.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of scary for people, because some people they want you to fix it, and we're like, well, we're not here to fix it.
Right.
And that would be actually disempowering.
Right.
So a lot of what we do is like, you got this. We believe in you. Let's work together. And part of what we do is we call it mutual support.
Mm-hmm.
So we're collaborating with our participants to navigate systems. And like you were mentioning, websites.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. There's a lot of websites that are inaccessible. So, okay, how can we make it more accessible in real time? Maybe finding a way to make the lettering bigger, or to read it out loud,
Right.
or
right.
ask, does this, okay, so we read this line. How do you perceive it? Does it make sense to you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like go through everything. And if the person has questions or wants more clarification, to be able to like, well, this is what I'm getting out of it.
Right.
And see, what oftentimes what I find is I don't know the answers. So I'm learning alongside the person that has the service.
Right. Let's figure it together.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Which is different than, I'm an expert, I'll tell you what to do and how to do it. So we make clear we're not case managers, we're social workers. We're just here as mutual, equal, providers, because we're being paid, right? But we're working alongside you.
Right.
And that kind of, a lot of people feel like, well, they're less intimidated, because they're like, okay, so you're my equal, and you listen to me, and you hear me, and I feel misunderstood. No, I feel understood.
Right,
You get the language, you get my experience.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that approach is extremely important, because you're already dealing with, right, a disability, or having to adapt a system to a system that's not, right, that's not considering all of the needs in an equitable way. And then you have someone that comes and like right, like tells you what to do. That's not helpful. It's a journey, I would say, right? Like you walk with them, right? And I keep referencing, and apologies if I keep referencing my mom's, because that was for me firsthand experiencing how when as she was losing her sight, people would come from different organizations, right, but similar, to see what worked and resonated with her. It wasn't like, okay, use the, right, like the guiding, what do you call this? Oh my God, I have the word in Spanish, el bastón. I forget what it's, anyway, the one that helps her walk, right?
Oh, like, okay, walker or cane or
The
something?
cane, that's what it is.
Okay.
And so provided different ways in which she could use it, right? Like, here's the trick, here's how you do it, right? Like, but it wasn't one way. It's like what resonates for you, right? Like, this is how. So they walked that journey with you. And I thought that was beautiful, right? Or also, okay, this is a technique to find your way and memorize where you are. Or here's another technique, right? Like what resonates with you. And I think it's part of walking that path with the person, right? Because just telling you something that worked for someone else doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for that person. So I think that's really important.
Right. Yeah.
In helping. Yeah.
And you're kind of reminding me of something from, I'll just talk about me for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have cerebral palsy. It's the type of cerebral palsy that really only, so basically brain injury that affected my left side of my body. So like when I took a huge risk, I do peer support groups. So I do a lot of facilitation of peer groups in our agency. And I just took a leap of faith and said, okay, we're going to do a crochet group this whatever month it was. I have never been able to knit. I don't know one thing about crocheting. I wasn't sure I could make a knot. And at the time, actually, what my program director was an occupational therapist, where that was what she got That was her like forte.
Mm-hmm.
So she, in essence, provided peer support by showing me this is how you make a knot. And then she was like, okay, that doesn't seem to work. How about we do it this way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then, oh, okay, how about we do it this way? And then at one point it clicked. I was like, oh, okay, I see how you're doing it. So right there, even as the provider for Disability Empowerment Center, I was learning something new
Right.
and acknowledging, yeah, I have a disability and I can kind of figure out creatively how this might work for me.
Right.
Suffice to say, I started doing something that turned out to be a completely different thing, and it didn't work after a couple tries. And she was like, wow, you managed to do something that just didn't seem possible, Mandy. Okay.
And you're like, yeah.
No, but like in the wrong way. She's like, how did you manage to do that? It was,
Right.
how did you make that kind of knot?
Right. Right.
And then another
And then you
example.
created a new way of making it.
I don't know. But, in the past, I would have been so scared and so self-conscious
Right.
about doing that and then doing it in front of people because it's very, there's a sense of
Intimidating.
vulnerability when, it's like, I can't do things like your average Joe or Jane. And then it's like, you're like, oh my gosh, people can see me and they can see how I'm
Vulnerable,
Yeah.
or right, like learning something is not fun. Being
Yeah.
a beginner at something is not fun, right?
Yeah. When I started at Disability Empowerment Center in 2018, and I learned over time how to like accept the fact that I have a disability.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I have what they call internalized ableism or shame about having a disability, but I started to learn that it's okay. It just means I have to find another way to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And then also being able to model that to other people. That's a huge part of what we do is like, we're modeling our own kind of problem solving abilities and troubleshooting,
Right.
as well as, guiding people through the process.
Right. Right.
And so it's like, one of the people I met with as a potential participant, was a part of the day when I was a little bit groggy. And I was, putting things in our database and doing like an initial appointment. And then I would like kind of make fun of myself if I made a mistake or something. And the person was like, she happened to be wanting to find a job and not sure if she could find a job. And she said, Mandy, after that appointment, I could see you weren't at your peak right at that point. And you helped me realize that I don't have to be at my peak all the time. I can be, having a somewhat difficult time, but like making it through and keep trying.
Right.
But I don't have to be perfect. And that was just encouraging to see that, like I got this job. I'm Mandy, the independent living specialist. I just happen to be feeling more groggy than usual, but I'm still doing my initial appointment. And here a person is witnessing me in that moment and saying, oh, okay, well, if you can do it, I can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I think this is, I think that's why it's so important to have, so that the organization reflects, right? Like that, the people that work understand what these challenges are, right? Because you mentioned acceptance, and that's sometimes, for people who are born with, right, it's perhaps easier, or I don't know, because it's been it's been your experience and you had to adapt much, much earlier on in life. But if it's something that that change gradually, I think it starts with acceptance, and like anyone else, right? Like you vulnerable, feeling like you can't do it, and feeling like, and having someone that understands and has gone through that and can guide you through that journey is just much easier, because you're like, oh, I can be vulnerable, right? Like our vulnerability belongs to us. And that's why, it's much easier to go through this with someone that could have, I would say empathy is the right word, or it may not be the right word, but it's more like, I understand what you're going through because I myself went through it, right?
Yeah, I think empathy is the perfect word for that. Yeah. And it's empowering to bear witness to that and say, and say, well, yeah, I can see how you're modeling maybe working through a challenge, but you're working through it. You're finding ways to troubleshoot whatever's going on, and hopefully the person that we're serving can pick up all those different things and see, okay, so she's doing it that way and that way. How would I do it?
Right.
And that's what would work for me.
Right.
And then, of course, the idea is, part of it is modeling it, but part of it is getting you, the participant, to try whatever it is on your own. The thing about our services is very individualized, so that's what makes it kind of hard for people to understand. We go on outreach we go to outreach events as vendors, and oftentimes people we don't really understand what you mean by peer support. And then also, what are your services?
Right.
And sometimes our services, if we were just listing them, is providing resources to people, other community resources, and doing the one-to-one, I was, peer support, which could include building skills,
right,
and all that. And, let me think about some of the other things we do. And like also being able to advocate for yourself, all of those types of things. But that's just a very generic thing. In truth, it's very customized to the individual. What do you want? What are some things in your life that you could use help with? How are you feeling overwhelmed, and what would make your experience easier? And then you can develop a plan. We call it an independent living plan based on those answers.
On those needs, right.
So, yeah. And so not one size fits all. And that's sometimes hard to convey to people because they're like, okay.
What else do you do?
And then it's like, well, what? And then, of course, it's open-ended because well, what would you like help with? What do you need?
Right.
And then if you're already overwhelmed, if the person's already overwhelmed, they're like, I don't know.
Right. No, but I think that's fun. And I think that approach is the right approach. You can't one size fits all it's not a model that could be applied here because the needs are very vast and different.
Yeah.
And even within the same needs, someone who is, and I keep referring back to, blindness, right?
Yeah.
Somebody might feel more comfortable with some aspects, right? Like advocating for themselves, but maybe not in using the cane or, right? Like the needs may vary and the level or like the evolving levels. I don't know if evolving is the right word, but the graduation levels of I'm comfortable with this tool. I know how to navigate that. I need help with this. And so, that sounds vague, but I think that's the absolutely right approach because how do you disempower, like you said, if you come in with the approach and we think we know what you need is not the answer, right? Like it's tell us what do you feel, what are the needs, and then adapt them to that, which is in essence much harder to do and support. But I think individualized is definitely the path to, to support the various needs. In our communities, oftentimes is talking about it. It's like, I don't accept it, or I don't, you're the, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to call ourselves out here. Mexicans, we're like the kings and queens of nicknames, and they often use your weakness, your biggest weakness, and that will be your nickname for your whole life in a funny way, right? But sometimes it crosses lines and in not appropriate ways, right? And that makes it much harder for someone to accept that maybe I was born with, without a hand, or I don't know. To even accept it is much harder, right? Like to then say, I need help, right? Like we're saying. So the first step is accepting it and, before receiving support. And I think organizations like yours do precisely that. Let's talk about it. We're here. We've gone through it. Let's have a discussion and let's see how we can help you in wherever you are in your journey of,
Right, exactly. So I do want to bring a little background. So I was born in the 70s and 1975. 2 years before that was they came out, what's the word? It was still needing to be enforced, but they came up with the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, which is essentially was about saying that people had access, like they were going on about, we don't have access to buildings. We don't have, and that impacts our education and it impacts how we navigate the community. And most people with disabilities were institutionalized. So they were really trying to undo that and say, we need to have curb cuts. We need to have ramps. We need to have
Right.
access to buildings. We need to be able to go to schools where we're learning at the same level as other people.
Right.
And I mean, one of my role models is Judy Heumann, because she was a huge advocate, during the disability rights movement. And so, where am I going with this? Okay, so based on that, early 70s, they were talking about the independent living philosophy, which was, we can choose our own path. We can be integrated into the community. We're not the problem. The system and the way things are built, the infrastructure is the problem. So, so we often talk about, instead of promoting institutionalization, we promote community inclusion and living on your own, but with social supports around you. And so when we talk, and that's kind of, I may not be saying it completely, but that's the independent living philosophy. It's like, it's the whole, you get to choose, you get to be included in the community and what's going on around you, instead of being institutionalized in being looked down upon as, because people, even when I was growing up, I found people that were well-intentional, they would, I sensed that people were patronizing me. I always felt like, you're not giving me enough credit for my intelligence. Yes, I have a cognitive disability, because part of cerebral palsy is cognitive learning disability. But that doesn't mean I don't get things. Right. So, and so that was one of the things that kind of even led me to human services and to this work that I'm doing now is, I felt that people didn't understand me or talk down to me. I felt alone and isolated. I didn't know anything about independent living centers. We are only one of many, because they're all across the country. I know I all talk about the 5 core services, the information referral, the peer-to-peer support, the peer groups, advocacy, or rather teaching advocacy and skill
education.
building.
Yeah, advocacy could be education for sure.
There may be differences in programs and how it's brought about in each agency, but it's all pretty much the same idea.
Right.
And what was I going to say? So for me, I remember, we used to be called Alliance of People with Disabilities, and we started in 1977. And then in, what was it? I believe it was 2022. I have it in my notes somewhere. We changed our name to Disability Empowerment Center, because it was more in alignment with what we actually do in it than the other name. But I mean, the agency has been around forever. When you think about 1970s, and now it's 2026. So, I feel like I'm going on a complete tangent. Where were we going with this?
No, I think you're bringing us in history and why independent living it's important in serving people and how your organization has viewed in the way that people see you and the work that you.
You reminded me what I was trying to lead to. So for myself,
yes.
I mean, this agency was around when I was in high school. I didn't know about it. I wish I had, at 14 years old, to be able to say, can you help me learn how to balance my checkbook, or how to cook, or how to talk to someone on the phone about I don't know, any of the worldly things, like calling the bank or calling utility services, or anything where I was taking control and doing it, as opposed to my parents. My parents would often say, Manny, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it.
Right, but then where's the teaching? How is how am I going to live? Right.
Yeah, and they love me. They love me so much. And they want me, and they really are proud of me, and they can really see how much I've grown. But they will also I grew up in South Africa, so there was this whole idea that you look to the experts about what do we do in this case? We have a child with a disability. What should we do?
Right.
And that was very cultural to that part of the world. So then And I think probably in the United States too, there was that same kind of framework. So now it's like more, now we're saying, well, it's not some medical doctor that's the expert. You, Mandy, are the expert.
And your needs.
Yeah.
Right. No.
And so
I agree.
it's, I guess what I'm trying to say is I wish I had found this agency when I was in my teens so I could have started learning more skills.
Well, but this is why you're here to tell
Yeah.
us more about it and for other people to learn. I think when we think of people with disabilities, it's that like those who don't have it, it's hard to connect, to understand the types of needs, right? Where in reality, it's just a different type of living. Like we understand the world and can approach the world in different ways and have different needs, but that doesn't, and I may learn right in different ways, but that doesn't mean I can't learn or I can't, right? And I think this is what education for communities that don't, that are not part need to understand. And I think that's why advocacy and education is really, really important, because we often have to remind government agencies, elected officials that, hey, we're here, we have needs, we exist, and you need to, and resources and funding need to get to organizations like yours to be able to serve the community and reach those communities.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Well, in the services that you that the organization offers, like what would you say are the most common challenges that people with disabilities face when trying to access housing, for example, or transportation or employment? I mean, you provided some examples for what you went through, but also education or other community resources. Like, what would you say are the most challenges or the most frequent challenges that you can share?
Yeah, well, right now the housing market is really expensive. And so people will apply for subsidized housing, which is lower income housing, but then they end up being on a waiting list. And sometimes it could be 10 plus years before their name comes up on the list. So even when they go through all of the hoops of making sure they have applied and they tell you they have to check each month on the waiting list where they are in the system, and then maybe they have other resources and they're doing all the right things, or the quote unquote right things. They still have to wait sometimes years, and in the meantime find shelters or tent cities or other kinds of temporary housing.
Right.
And then I talked to a person the other day who said, I don't want to be homeless, and I have a cat, or I think it was, some pet, I believe it was a cat. And, it's like, I don't want my animal to feel like thrown on the street. I don't want that animal taken away from me. What's going to happen to me,
Right.
And then I've also found that some people don't want to go to shelters, that, there's a lot of, I don't know, it's across the board. There are some people that just really don't feel comfortable, and they say they rather. I think I've had some people tell me I'd rather be on the street than in a shelter. So that's kind of wow. It's like wow, something about.
What are the reasons? Like unaccepted, or like not being able to meet the needs, or like that's drastic.
Yeah.
I mean, just to say I'd rather sleep on the street. Like what do you sense that's?
Yeah, well,
what's the reason? Yeah.
I think sometimes it's trauma, because when you're around other people, and then you might have someone who has a mental health issue where they like start yelling at nights, or they're having nightmares or something, and then it impacts your trauma.
Right.
And then and of course I think I visited Sophia Way at one point, and you can see they have little cubicles. They're not very big rooms, and then they have. They offer meals and things, and they have a day center. All of that sounds great, but then maybe people are also using drugs at the same time, even though they're not supposed to. And then there's, personality clashes.
Right.
And other different layers of problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for example, in housing, like if somebody, what types of services could you connect, or can the organization connect to someone who's looking for? Is it temporary? Are there like how far can you go in supporting people who have lost their home, for example, or transportation, right? Like how does that individualized services, or how those services look like and maybe perhaps give us some examples of that?
Well, with housing, I went to outreach at the downtown Bellevue Library yesterday, and I talked to one of the homeless outreach people in the city of Bellevue. And, again, it's, he said, sometimes I just have to say it straight. There's only so much that we can do. Everybody is waiting for housing. And so the list is going to be long. So if someone but what we say is, if someone comes in and says, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do, I might say, well, you probably want to apply for a housing authority. Unfortunately, King County Housing Authority is closed. So let's see which housing provider or housing authority is open. Let's apply for it. The very least at least then you'll be in the system. Even if it means waiting forever, you'll at least be in the system. And then just other types of resources, where you're going to eat. Here are day centers. Here are other community resources where you can find shelter. Or when I say shelter, I mean instead of being outside in the cold all day, you have another place to go. And then we use the King County Resource Guide to look up different resources. And then oftentimes, if we're not sure of a specific resource, we might say call 211. And 211 also has crisis services. Actually, I was talking to someone who does housing through HopeLink, and she said that and I think, so you call 211, and then they kind of get you hooked up with the resources. And then what you want to do is don't take my entire word for this because I'm still learning, but it sounds like you need to have a housing case manager. And then from there, the housing case manager can get, move things forward. Right. So, yeah. And then there's different levels of housing. There's subsidized housing. There's affordable housing. There's supported housing where they have case management on site and other kinds of care for people. It's complicated. It's really complicated.
Sure. And the needs are not, I often say they're for one person, right? The intersection of the needs can be complex, right? I don't have transportation, or maybe I don't have housing, or maybe I have, my income level doesn't allow me to, I can't reach, or I don't have access to fresh food, right? So do you work with other organizations? Well, I mean, you mentioned HopeLink, which is also a nonprofit, a large nonprofit that we work with, that provides essential human services, essential services like transportation. But how do you partner with other organizations, including us, which we get to do? But what kinds of organizations? So so that the services can be. Whatever you can't do, you can refer.
Right.
How do you collaborate with other organizations?
Well, I love networking, so I show up at all the networking events.
Which is when I met you. That's how I met you. Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a simple thing as, if you need to refer to our organization, we can refer to each other, because we now know each other. We know what. What services we provide. I'll be top of mind now thinking about Centro, I want to say it right. Centro Cultural Mexicano.
Yay.
I'm learning Spanish, so I'm I gotta be able to pronounce this right. Okay. So I just think about any and all nonprofits in King County, because we serve people in King County as opposed to other counties. And, so someone comes in, they have a specific issue, say it's around transportation. Well, HopeLink also has transportation services, or, well, they have what they call, there's a couple of different things. One is they have subgroups that are always trying to improve transportation, and they call it mobility management. And a lot of, I as a provider go and get information, and the light rail was recently, I want to say unveiled, but that's not the right word. Launched, right? And other types of transportation services, and they always working to make it more accessible, which is great. So whether it's that or it's the resources you guys provide, There's Salvation Army. There's all these other places. Gosh, yeah. I personally like reaching out to people and saying, this is what we do. It sounds like a lot of what you do aligns or kind of intersects what we do. Let's have a relationship. Let's keep, each other on the radar and see how we can work together. And, and again, the whole be inclusive, and whether it's people of different cultures or different languages, and then how do we connect so that people can better understand us and our services based on that culture or language. That seems to be a barrier because we use the language line whenever we get someone who speaks.
Just ask, how do you serve immigrant communities?
Yeah, so we use the language line when people first call us, and then I tend to just give a little blurb about what our agency does, and then ask, do you want to have? Do you want an independent living plan? An easy way to decode that word is, do you have a goal? Right. And can we make it as concrete and simple as possible? Right. And often, so we have kind of like two tracks. One is I'm trying to find information, or I need a resource that's in the community. Can you help me? So we call that an information referral. The other one is a participant who is actually active as, in completing a goal, at least one. Mm-hmm. And so that's an active participant, or if you're talking about our disability, nonprofit language, it'd be called a consumer. Mm-hmm. But people don't want to call themselves consumers. They're like, what am I consuming?
Sounds like for-profit language, right? I call them constituents, which I think is a borrowed term from government.
right. So where was I going with this? So it's any number of things: transportation barriers, food, utilities, energy assistance.
What about employment?
Oh yeah, a lot of people come in and say, "Can you help me get a job?" And I will say, well, it depends what you're looking for. Are you trying to find a way to network with other people so you can start, talking with others and maybe word of mouth will get you a job? Or are you like, I don't know how to build my resume. Can you help me build my resume? Or is it like, I need
what type of right.
And then some people, they need more vocational rehabilitation. So that would be DVR, Department of Vocational Rehabilitation. I was just at the Together Center and they were doing, which was, I think it was through WorkSource. They set a resume building class. I was like, whoa, if I had known about this, I know several people that want to, are looking for employment, and maybe that would have been a great resource to give to them. Say, come to the Together Center to go and, learn how to write your resume. Yeah. But oftentimes I can be the one helping write the resume. Right. And, this is how I'll usually say, well, this is how I do it, and
find your way.
Yeah. And then I mentioned to someone recently, you want to really showcase your skills, and even if you feel like you have weaknesses, I've learned this the hard way, that you don't want to really talk about your weaknesses. You want to talk about how you turn your weaknesses into strengths. Mm-hmm. People don't want to know, okay, you have weaknesses. They want to know, okay, we're human. Got it. How do you turn those weaknesses into your strengths? Yeah. So, and a lot of times you can, once you have that mentality of where you kind of flip it around. I'm trying to think of something in my own life that I can give you an example of. Perfect example. Disability Empowerment Center was basically my first job since 2009. So in 2018, I finally got a job. Suffice to say, yes, I had temporary positions. I had different types of positions. But when I got out of school, one of the things, I got my master's in psychology. And so I was going...
a bachelor's in psychology.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so I was, all ready to go into community mental health facility, provide therapy, all that stuff, and case management. And then they were like, well, you need to drive. You need to be out in the community driving, maybe to a hospital or, any number of
That's
cases.
a barrier right there.
Yeah, that's a barrier.
What
And
if
it was
you
a
don't
barrier.
drive?
And exactly. So I don't drive. I have, between my cerebral palsy, my seizure disorder, and the fact that I have no left peripheral vision, even if I could drive, I wouldn't put myself in a car.
Right.
So I was like, well, that's not going to work for me. But I have all this other, this other education, these other skills. I mean, I spent all these time in university, and they're like, well, sorry, we can't help you. So I was very depressed for a very long time because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I want to be in human services. Right. I want to be able to counsel people. And the doors are closing on me.
Right.
So one of as you mentioned, the one path I went was to try and get a private practice up and running, which I did. Life happened, so I didn't actually take off. And then, I kind of shifted gears. I love all these car analogies. Anyway, but yeah, that became a huge barrier. So,
but that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think that's the reason why, and let me tie it to the very name of this podcast in radio is Voces Que Luchan, Inspiran, which means voices that fight and inspire, because it's exactly that. Someone's success, right? People see the success of it. Like I see you employed and you're here talking to me, on a podcast. We don't see what it took to get there, right? Yeah. And there's always some type of resiliency, right? Like a story or a fight within yourself, right? Like that validation sometimes we're waiting for someone else to validate us. No, that fight, whether it was internal or external, you don't reach success without some type of struggle, right? Like we don't learn, sadly, in our comfort zone.
Right.
And I think this is testament of that, right? Like you had to try different things. You graduated, doors closed, right? Life is that way. How do I work around that? How do I believe in myself, right? And now the fact that you went through those hurdles, right? And you were able to overcome those barriers. Now you can speak from the other side, right? Like, hey, this is what I did to do, but first believe in yourself, right? Like, that's going to close that. Those are right. Like, this is the path I chose. Let me show you, and hopefully that person, something resonates to that person so that they can independently live happy, right? Or at peace, or with the necessary needs to have an independent life.
Well, and I was fortunate enough to have people like natural supports and people that said, said, Mandy, I believe in you. You got this. But I did feel depressed. And you can't really, even if you have the ability to get a job, if you're depressed, you don't have the energy per se that's going to,
motivate you
or even, I mean, how long just say you get the job. How long is it going to last if you're feeling down all the time? Right. Not that please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you must never feel down or, pick yourself up from your bootstraps. What is it?
Bootstraps. Yeah.
That's so what happened was, for me, I found a coach who basically said, how about you make an affirmation? And it doesn't have to be completely specific. Just say, I find a job that works for me and that compensates me well, and the whole transportation thing is not going to be an issue. So I had a statement, and I put it on top of my, on the wall of my apartment, and I just kept saying it over and over again. And so I was able to get out of my depression and my angst, and I could slowly start to feel like I was more and more positive and had more and more faith that something at some point was going to happen.
Right.
And usually at that point, the word outreach was very scary for me, which is one thing we do at Disability Empowerment Center. We go out in the community, we table at events, we network with different agencies. Mm-hmm. So the word outreach was scary, but by the time I was at the interview and the person said the word my executive director said the word, outreach, I literally hopped up out of my chair and said, yes, let's do this.
I love it.
So I don't know, you could call it divine guidance. People were came to me from in the right time, in the right spaces.
Yeah.
But I was able to find my voice and be able to say, I got this.
I love this.
And other people believe in me too. And why not?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think, and I always get into this like mystify, like, inspirational kind of talks, but I do think that it starts with you. You have to believe in yourself, and how if you're focused on the barriers, that's what's gonna appear in your life. That's what you're going to manifest. Like, you gonna think, I'm thinking of transportation as a barrier. Well, guess what? Like, that's what the universe is gonna give. That's what the kinds of. But if you focus on, I'm gonna have a job that's going to be right for me, right? You start dismantling, right? That so many times the barriers are barriers that we, maybe cross them once, but then we have to let it go. It happened. That job was probably not for you, not aligned, right? You would have gotten it, say they accommodate you. Maybe the environment wasn't right? Like, you have to believe that something is right for you, and it wasn't. It's almost like when you run and you're trying to catch the train and you miss the train and you're crying for that train, but what you don't know is that there's another train that's coming, and you just have to hop on and wait a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
It's alignment. And I think once we believe, right, at the personal level, and we start changing that perspective, right, and getting out of that, like you said, it's not about forgetting, or it's not about ignoring the difficult emotions like sadness or depression. I think it's important to acknowledge them, to feel them,
right,
but not stay in them, right? Like, it's at what point do I take that courage or that anger, which is like another level that's going to impulse me or catapult me to say, I'm going to make a change. And if I don't get myself out of this, who will, right? And then you start crossing the people who support you, right? Like,
and I wish it were that simple, because oftentimes the one thing I'm thinking about is internalized ableism. So ableism says essentially that the world is made for quote unquote able-bodied people. So and people with disabilities are not as well. There's a really great. We have a thing on our wall in the office that sounds perfect, but I can't remember all the words. But essentially, that the world was made for able-bodied people, and that people with disabilities are
trying to fit
are not valued as much. And so that discrimination, and also the idea that the idea, like, I'm thinking back to Judy Heumann's book, where she was talking about how her friend had to get her from the sidewalk to the crosswalk because she was in a wheelchair. There were no such thing as curb cuts. So again, it comes back to where it's inaccessible,
right?
And so
the whole system,
the system's inaccessible. It's not about you, but it's about the system,
right?
But what happens, unfortunately, is first you learn, when you, like in my case, I was born with a disability, but even those that acquire it, they learn, there's something wrong with me,
right?
I just can't really, I'm isolated, or,
right.
I'm not valued, I'm not enough. And so then even on an unconscious level, people start to internalize that.
Right.
And then it's like, and you're asking me to have faith in myself that I'm going to get X, Y, and Z? Like, how am I supposed to do that? It's not, now it's almost like you unlearn the social narrative, and like, and then that takes time.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah.
No.
And then so it's really nice. I think that's also why Center for Independent Living is really great, because it's basically showing, that you are worthy, you are valuable, you do have a voice, you can do this,
Right.
And we just need to find a way that works best for you within whatever system where we in.
Right. No, absolutely. When it's the system, and then we internalize it, right? And I think I don't know if this applies, and maybe it's not a good example, but I read a study from a credible source, which I can't quote right because I don't remember, but it was about the children were, children who grow up without love, right? Like just rejected by their parents or whatever, or abused in any way. You know, intend to, the first thing that they do is internalize it. Like something is wrong with me versus what is wrong with you, father, right? Obviously, right? And I think is that we quickly turn it into, rather than questioning, this is like having that discernment. And this is why I'm saying it may not be 100% aligned by example, but I think is that it's that we assume that it's us, the problem is me, even though no, the world is not adapted or is not considering, or it doesn't it's not working in a way that is equitable for all of us. And that's the question. I think organizations like yours address it, not just at the individual level, like peer-to-peer individualized care, but also at the systems level. Like, what do we need to do to change the system, to change and think, right? Like the curves, the ramp, or how do you call it? The
curb cuts is when you go down, and it's like the crosswalk. But then even ramps instead of just stairs, or an elevator.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's the system that needs to be inclusive. And for me, it's who's at the table making those decisions. Right. And if nobody, if that table doesn't look diverse, we need to make sure that table looks, it's diverse. But that's really beautiful story. And I mean, I think I see it as a story of resilience and what, and I hope that those who are listening to us take it, right, and think, hey, I'm living through that, or I'm going through that. How can I? Where's the exit? Where do I look up? Who can help me to reach? Who can understand me and can help me connect to those resources that may help me get out of this depression or out of my comfort zone,
right? Yeah.
To move forward.
And sometimes it's nice just to say, I see you, I get it. Maybe I don't have your exact disability, but, I know what it's like to have the door closed on me. I know what it's like to feel like, whether it's intentional or not. Most of the time it's not intentional. People like saying, oh, poor you, you have a disability.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it's the way, like the seeing. I always think of some, when people are like, well, I feel sorry. I'm like, do you want somebody to feel sorry for you? No, then that's not the approach, right? Like you can't, that's not a way to empathize with somebody or sympathize with someone. No, it's not. It's just, I hear you. What can I do? And sometimes it's just being silent and, being next to that person and just making them understand that you're with them and you support them. But
we could talk about this all day.
We could, yes, no, for sure. Well, thank you. This has been a great. I love that you were able to bring us, examples or personally that test that, you're to me a testament, and hopefully to our listeners, that you can, right? That no matter how hard life can be and how dysfunctional the systems can be, there's hope, and there are organizations with people like you who understand what it's like, who understand how to deliver services, are out there with services that are free for the community.
Oh, right. That's important. Yes, we are free.
So how can people connect with your organization?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways. You can go to our website, disabilityempowerment.org, and then we have a form you fill out to say, I would like more information. And then we receive it via email and call you back. Well, as I mentioned, we do go to outreach, so you might find us at an outreach event. And then let's see. So we have our main line number.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And then each of us staff have our own direct lines as well. So let me think about this.
We can share it on. You don't have to remember the number. We can. What's the website?
www.disabilityempowerment.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll share it in the legend, and we'll put it. So people who speak Spanish and don't speak English can also contact you. There are translation services.
Yeah, we actually have not pamphlets, but like what do you call this? Flyer kind of thing,
like
one-pagers. Where it's a one-pagers where it's all written in that particular language. So we have Russian, Spanish, Vietnamese, and I want to say something else. Also, we do have peer groups that we offer every
fantastic.
month. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm always kind of letting people know what's coming up for our peer groups.
Okay.
We have because we have 3 offices. One is in Seattle, the other one is in Redmond at the Together Center, and then one in Auburn on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a group that's in person in our Seattle office.
Great.
And then one that's hybrid, and then a virtual one. So several options.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mandy. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story, your, how you reached these services and how you yourself wish that or you found organizations like this. So hopefully the work that you're doing has paid off, because now you are a spokesperson to others to reach, right? And to be able to say out loud, hey, I can understand you, I see you, I hear you, and let me help you, is probably the most rewarding thing, right? Like for something that you yourself understand well. So thank you so much for sharing your story, for trusting us and trusting our, our community to hear about your story. And hopefully to those who are listening, got some level of inspiration. And if you yourself are experiencing a disability and don't know who to connect with or know of somebody, please reach out, Centro Cultural Mexicano or Disability Empowerment Center. We can connect you to those services. The needs are vast and the help is out there. So Mandy, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to collaborating with your organization in the foreseeable future. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to just mention a few of the things that are happening this month as we're July. Yay, sun is out and it's summer and all of these amazing things. So our Zumba classes are getting back on track. Those were really, really, really famous and popular rather. Mm-hmm. So those are going to be coming back. Our English classes and Spanish classes cohort, they're going to be starting back in the fall. So stay in the lookout for anybody who's interested in taking those classes. And we are also continuing with our support for small businesses. There's 2 cohorts, or rather 2 different programs that can support if you're thinking about opening a business, if you know somebody who's thinking about opening a business, we can help you through, right, like connecting you with different services. If you have the idea or you already started your business, we can help you grow it or expand it or start it or register it. So thank you so much. Follow us on social media, and we look forward to seeing you again in August. See you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.